Hey, Chuck, have you ever heard of a term, nice guys finish last?
Oh, yeah. I hate being a nice guy.
Me too. This is why I think we should start a podcast, The Nice Guy Show.
Oh, I like it. Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do this.
Do you ever wonder, why do I always seem to give so much more than I get? All I want is to be appreciated and loved. Is that asking too much? Why do all the jerks get the hot girls while I get stuck in the friend zone? When will it ever be my turn? If this sounds like you, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Nice Guy Show. This is the podcast that asks the question, how do I break free from the nice guy syndrome so I never have to come in last again? Now here are your hosts, Faisal Khokhar and Chuck Chapman.
Thanks for joining us on the very first episode of The Nice Guy Show. My name's Chuck Chapman. I'm here with my co-host, Faisal Khokhar. And we are doing this podcast because we're nice guys in recovery. And if you're a nice guy and you've found yourself finishing last a lot of times in life, love, sex, and all of those things, this is a podcast for you. So, Faisal, tell us why we're here. Why are we doing this?
Chuck, I got divorced and then hit some crisis point. I had a real low point in my life. And I didn't realize this, but I was a nice guy. I thought I was actually a nice guy, which was a good thing. But it turned out it's not a good thing. And then I came across a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. What a catchy title.
Right, yeah.
So I went through this book and oh my, wow, was it insightful. It was like this guy who wrote this book. I was pissed off. I was annoyed at him, but he knew everything about me. You know the book?
I know the book. I know the book well. In fact, I found the book when I was going through therapy. I had been seeing a therapist for about 3 years, and the therapy was really helpful and useful and everything like that. And it helped me really understand kind of like why where all of this stuff came from, all my nice guy tendencies came from. But I hadn't even heard of the nice guy syndrome up to that point. And then I read No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it was that same reaction. And I've talked to lots of men who have had the same reaction of like, this guy's been following me around and writing my life story. And it was so eerie because everything that he was writing about in the book, I identified with it. And it was an eye-opening experience of why my life was in the way that it was, which was a disaster. And then gave me some tools to work through that. And that's when I not only started working with people in general, but helping guys break free of their nice guy syndrome. So
Absolutely. I mean, very similar. I didn't realize some of the characteristics I had. I thought, I was a good person. I was a nice guy. And I thought, hey, that's a good thing. And I thought this is the perfect formula to win in life. But actually, nice guys, we do finish last. If you don't work on this, you're going to finish last.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this work and why I think this podcast is going to be so valuable to people who listen to it, because not only will it help you unlock some of the things that have been holding you back in life, but it will also, I think, accelerate you sort of to the front of the line, so to speak, on all the different areas of your life. So we're going to take the principles of the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and we're building a podcast around those principles so that you and I can go deeper and we can share that with a larger audience. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We're going to bring some, incredible experiences from our own personal lives, from our own struggles. And just because, we work as trainers in nice guy recovery, it doesn't mean that we've got everything resolved, because and you're going to see some of the struggles that we still face and so how we are overcoming it. Even like as this podcast evolves and grows, there'll be some things that will happen in our personal life that, I would love to bring to the audience, which can really help them. And also working with so many nice guys, we've learned so much. We have so much reference points and stories of how they struggled and how they tackled it, what to do and what not to do. And that's going to be the crucial thing about this podcast is, we're here to really help you, serve you. As we're growing, you're growing, we're all growing. This is the purpose of this.
Yeah, for sure. So there might be some people that stumbled on this podcast, thought the name was catchy or something like that, and really never read No More Mr. Nice Guy. So if you were to meet somebody for their first time and try to explain to them what a nice guy is, how might you describe the nice guy syndrome?
So when I talk about the nice guy, people think, oh, that's a good thing. Well, what happens is the premises behind the nice guy is the people pleaser, right? That's what's really going on. And it's like, oh, you know what? If I'm a people pleaser, if I put everybody else's needs, if I make everybody else happy, right? That's a good thing. And that's what we've been taught. This is how I was, raised. Make everybody else happy, prioritize everybody else, make sure everybody else is happy. And at the end, I was sacrificing my own wants, desires, and needs. And what that left me was bitterness, resentment, anger, frustration. So in a tin, that's what the nice guy is. How about you, Chuck? How do you tell everyone else?
Well, similarly, that a nice guy really isn't nice. In fact, a nice guy is fraudulently nice. All right. He's nice not because he is a nice guy. He's nice because he kind of wants something from you. Nice guys tend to operate on a limiting self-belief. And the self-belief is, if I meet everybody else's needs without them asking, then those people will in return meet my needs without me asking. And that limiting belief then shows up in our life where we are not asking for our needs to be met, but instead trying to be nice to someone, hoping that they will be nice in return to us. And then when I do something for someone and I don't get that in return, what happens is I become resentful. And nice guys typically act out their resentment in passive-aggressive ways.
Right.
So the nice guy, because he wants to be seen as nice, he won't tell you he's angry. He will just act out his anger passively. So, for example, he's the guy that, will tell his boss, what he thinks his boss wants to hear, but then go and do the thing that he wants to do. He's the kind of guy that will say, I love you to a woman, not because he loves her, but because he wants to hear, I love you back. He's the kind of guy that, doesn't want to rock the boat. He doesn't want to make waves or cause conflict. In fact, conflict is like the thing that he avoids the most. And so when you have this combination of people pleasing, not stating your needs, doing things, doing to get, then what you have is a nice guy.
So Chuck, some of the things that you said is like, this was me. So how did that show up in your, past relationships?
Well, in my first marriage, it really showed up the most in terms of not expressing my needs, not expressing my wants, being afraid of conflict and being afraid to express my needs and wants. And so when I think back upon that part of my life, what really stands out for me is I was essentially afraid of my wife. I was afraid of her reaction. I was afraid of her judgment. And so I was doing everything that I could to try to make her happy, because I felt like if I could make her happy, then I would be happy. And there was this moment in our relationship. We'd been going to church at the time, and we got out of the church service, and I could tell she was upset about something. I couldn't tell what it was. I'm sort of rifling through my Rolodex of, what did I do to mess up? And so finally I just like, what's going on? And she blurts out, she's like, I am so disappointed with God. This is not the way that my life was supposed to be. She was upset with me for my lack of leadership. She was upset with my lack of, integrity, all these other things. And I realized at that moment, her expectations were so high that even God couldn't meet them. And that was one of the first events where I was like, oh, I've been trying to meet someone's expectations who are so high that it's impossible for me to meet them. I need to focus on meeting my own needs. And that's where I think some of the nice guy stuff where it really started to resonate with me is like, I need to make my needs a priority. How about you? How did your nice guy stuff show up in your relationships?
Oh, I'm just thinking about this question. I'm thinking, where do I start? There was there were so many of them. When the point you made about giving to get.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I'm guilty of this as well. I would do so many nice things for the girl, right? So I would do so many nice things because in the back of my head is if I act in these, do all these nice things, give her gifts, bring her things, keep helping her, meet all her needs, then she'll reciprocate. She'll give me what I need. I want sex.
Right.
Yeah. I want the sex, I want the care, I want the attention. And if I do all of these things for her, I would assume I will always get those. So there's a huge assumption about it that, they have no idea of what I'm trying to communicate or what I expect back.
Right.
So I have this expectation. And when those needs are met, for example, and this is common, guys go on a date, they spend a lot of money on a date, to take her out, to spoil her, and they're expecting to come back and say, oh, you know what, she didn't want sex.
Yeah, sure.
And they're like angry afterwards, like, well, I spent all this money, I invested all this time and money, and she doesn't want sex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we oftentimes approach things like a formula. If I do A, B, C, I will get D. Right. So if I take her out, and I shower her with love and give her gifts and all these kind of things like that, then of course she's going to want to have sex with me, and then I'll get my needs met, and that never works, does it?
No. So Chuck, we've got a list of what a nice guy is and who's a nice guy. So let's go through some of the lists that we have.
Yeah, so he's the guy who lets his partner run the show.
So is he the one who's like, you know what, happy wife, happy life? I don't know how to make. Yeah, I don't know how to meet her needs. So what I'll do is I'll step back, observe, and watch what she needs, and then hoping that I can find out what will make her happy. Because I did this a lot.
Yeah.
I stepped back from the relationship. I didn't lead. And, you mentioned that. That was me. I was thinking, I don't know how to make her happy. Yeah. Right. So it's better that she runs the show, because if I run the show and I screw it up, then it's on me. If she runs the show and she screws it up and she's not happy, it's on her.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really kind of a lack of leadership. The classic thing would be, where your partner says, what do you want to have for dinner? Okay. And what's the common answer? I don't know. What do you want?
I don't know. Right? What do you want?
Right. All right. So it's letting her run the show in even some of the smallest things, rather than having an opinion and saying, what sounds really good to me tonight is, Italian or Thai or whatever. So yeah, he's that guy who just says, he lets his wife or partner, girlfriend, take the driver's seat and everything.
All right. So some of the women listening to this and saying, okay, well, why is that a bad thing? Why shouldn't she be running the show? Why should it be always the man who has to run the show? Right? This is the kind of questions I get as well. So why should she not run the show?
Well, since you get those questions, what do you typically say?
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
see what I did there? I just kind of like,
Yeah, did you do the nice guy thing and just divert it back to me?
I didn't have
How
an
do you feel
answer,
about
so
it?
I was like,
Yeah. So here's the thing. When it comes to leadership, right, one of the things that I learned was, I remember talking to my sister, and my sister and I, we were both walking along, and this is a few years after the divorce. And so we were talking about it, and we started talking about my, ex-wife. And she said something that really hurt me, and it really did, I remember this, and it really got to me. So she and my ex-wife, they talk together. They're good. They have a good friendship. Mm-hmm. And she said, Faisal, he had no backbone. He didn't have any, there was nothing in him that was like strong, like a leader. Mm. And when I heard that, it really hurt me. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. There I am in the relationship, not wanting to be the controlling guy, not wanting to be the guy who puts his foot down and says, we have to do X, Y, and Z, because that's the narrative that we hear. So I just said, look, whatever you want, whatever will make you happy. And at the end of the day, I'm running around trying to make you happy. And then you're complaining about me that it's not enough. I'm like, how do I win this?
so by not having a backbone, what did that do for her?
So what I learned was, when I went on this masculine feminine journey, not having a backbone, it made her feel really unsafe. So it was like, this guy isn't strong. When things go hard or will go difficult, he's not going to show up. She'd rather you be strong and honest about it than you to say, well, I don't know, I'm going to defer the decisions to you. So later on in my journey, and I love, I'm sure we're going to be talking about the masculine and feminine in one of the podcasts. That's some of the things I learned about it. So when you go, here's a summary of it. When you go salsa, right, when you go, if anyone's been salsa, you'll always learn salsa dancing, or any kind of like dancing, ballroom dancing. Yeah. You'll always learn the man leads, the feminine follows. Right? Two people cannot be leading at the same time. Just like a car, you cannot have two drivers, right? There's only one cockpit, there's only one steering wheel, one set of controls, because both of you can't lead, right? What I found is, when the masculine leads, the feminine then goes more into a feminine energy where women really want to be. And then she can focus on leading, being in the feminine, while the guy's leading in the logistics, the logical part. So they're both doing in their most strongest things, but they're doing it in a different way and different forms.
Yeah. I think you said it really well, that ultimately what the nice guy syndrome leads to is your partner not feeling safe. She can't trust you, so if she can't trust you in the little things, how can she trust you in the big things? So if I don't have a backbone, if I'm never able to say, this is what I want, or this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I need us to do, then she can't trust that. And if she can't trust that, then I think what happens is she starts to say to herself, well, if I can't trust him, I've got to do everything. I can only trust myself, right? And I think that that's what starts developing resentments in her world. And as nice guys, we don't really pick up on that. We just sort of double down on being nice. Whenever she's upset, it's like, I'll just double down. I'll just be nicer. So I think that would be maybe the cornerstone of the result of the nice guy syndrome, is that others can't trust us. Well, let's read through this list here. We got started on the first one and we sort of got sidetracked. So let's just kind of read through the list here. So a nice guy, he's the guy, he's a friend. He'll do anything for everybody else, but his own life seems to be like in a shambles.
That's so true, right?
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy who frustrates his partner because he's so afraid of conflict and never gets it resolved. And that's a tough one. You know,
Yeah, so
Doesn't
nothing
wanna-
ever gets resolved. Which
Yeah.
again sort of leads to that trust thing. If she feels like, okay, we're gonna have, I can't trust you to finish this conflict, so I'm frustrated because nothing ever seems to get resolved. Yeah. He's also the kind of guy who will tell his boss or another person what he thinks he wants them to hear, and then reverse himself to please someone else. I've never done that. Only in every instance that I can remember back in the day.
That's a
I
tough
was
one,
a
yeah.
classic of that. Of like, I will, you want to hear this? Okay, great. I'm a conflict avoider, so I'll agree with you, and then somebody else will come up and they'll have an opposite opinion, and I'll agree with them, and then the first person comes back and says, well, so and so told me that you disagreed with me, but you told me that you agreed with me, and so what did I do? Lack of trust again.
Yeah, the nice guy's fickle, so he'll just go with whoever's the strongest in that part. Yeah. All right, so here's a man who lets people walk all over him. Because he doesn't want to rock the boat. And so he'll say, "What I don't, whatever you want, I'll do it, but I want to have an opinion. And because I don't want to be disliked, so walk all over me." So he's the kind of guy who always says, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, in No More Mr. Nice Guy, Robert pulls out this limiting belief about nice guys is again a core belief of nice guys want a problem-free, smooth life. They believe that if they do everything right, the way that other people want it to be done, then they'll have a problem-free, smooth life. So not rocking the boat is about wanting to have that problem-free, smooth life. And life just doesn't work that way, I found out.
Well, and how many times do we try to make everything so smooth?
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So what else is there?
So he's the dependable guy at work who will never say no, but would never tell anyone if they were imposing on him. So I'm not going to tell somebody no. Somebody may be imposing on me, asking me to do something, but because I'm a nice guy, because I want a problem-free, smooth life, I will say, I won't say no. Instead, I become kind of the yes man, but I'm not letting people know that they're imposing on me. So a nice guy is really a guy who lacks a lot of boundaries.
Yeah, when you were saying that, it was just reminding me of. So when I grew up without a strong male role model. And one of the things about the nice guy is that they don't really have strong, healthy, masculine role models. And most of the nice guys are grown up around women and the feminine narrative. I was raised by a mom who had some challenges herself, and then I had a sister, then I had cousins. They were all females, went to school, again, dominated by female presence. So therefore, I picked up a lot of the female narrative.
Absolutely.
And because of that, it's always about being nice.
Yeah. I think it can also be generational. Like my father, he's a good man, but he didn't have a father. He grew up with a single mom. And in fact, he had, I don't know, I think I counted one time, it was like 8 different stepdads along his life. And so when he became a father, he didn't have the tools necessary to be able to instill those in me. And so I think it's one of those things that nice guys often exist generationally, and then we just kind of pass that on. So if we don't interrupt that pattern, then it'll just continue on to the next generation.
Absolutely. Right. So what's the next one? So he's kind of man. Here's a good one. This one I resonate with this one, and I see a lot of guys. Here's a man whose life seems to be under control until boom, one day, he does something and he destroys it.
Yeah.
Right. So from the outside, it looks rosy. He portrays a really good, strong image. Everything else is good, but behind closed doors, there's chaos, there's anger, there's resentment, there's unfulfillment, there's envy, there's jealousy, all of these things going on in the background.
Absolutely. And that was really something that happened in my life, where I was holding all of this pressure, all of these resentments, I say to guys sometimes it's kind of like trying to hold, 3 beach balls underwater at the same time. One of them's going to pop up. And that's what happens for us. I think when we hold all of this resentment, all of this negativity, on the outside, things might be looking good, but on the inside, we're just waiting to implode. And that's one of the things that happened in my life was I imploded. I lost everything. I and I'll get into my story maybe in further podcasts, but yeah, the thing that happened to me was I was such a nice guy that eventually my life exploded and I lost everything.
I can relate to that. That's going to be another great podcast as well, because I had it all. It looked like I had it all, but behind closed doors, and then it just everything was gone.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some of the characteristics? Let's do like about 5 characteristics, like real strong characteristics that they have. So nice guys seek approval of others.
Absolutely. And nice guys try to hide their perceived flaws and mistakes.
Right, nice guys put others' needs first and wants before their own. So especially dads. I see a nice guy's dad do this a lot.
Nice guys tend to sacrifice their personal power and often play the victim role. We will get into a podcast about that.
Definitely.
Nice guys playing the victim role. Yeah.
Right, nice guys tend to be disconnected from other men and from their own masculinity energy.
So important. Right. Oh my gosh. Oh, and this is probably key.
Right? Because how many times this was me. I had more female friends than male guys, right? So I was more comfortable around women and women's conversations than I was comfortable around strong men, especially like strong, competent men used to scare the hell out of me, right? I used to be terrified of strong men and strong women.
Yeah. No, and I know that was something that also happened with me was, we talk a lot of times about like the mother issues and that kind of thing, but really I think the masculine wound or the father wound that nice guys take on creates in them a fear of connecting with other men. And the vast majority of the guys that I work with, when I ask them the question, who's your buddy kind of thing, they struggle. They struggle to kind of say, well, they might say, well, I have a friend from, college that he lives in another state and, we call each other every once in a while, something like that. Or, but I think a lot of guys, and this was myself included when I first discovered this, like when I looked around and said, who are my friends? Like it's 3 a.m. in the morning and my world has collapsed. Who do I call? And when that actually happened to me, I had no one. So it's vital to have men in your life. And I also think that scares nice guys. So we tend to avoid that. Okay.
I totally get that one. All right. Last one. Let's finish this podcast off. Right. Okay. Nice guys create situations in which they do not have very much sex. They don't have a lot of sex. So nice guys usually end up with the dead bedroom.
Yep. And again, comes back to, wanting a problem-free, smooth life and being, well, if I meet her needs, the classic one is like, so I'm gonna clean everything up while she's gone, and then when she comes back home, she's gonna want to have sex with me. But what happens instead is she says, "Oh, well, you forgot to empty the dishwasher."
There's always something, right?
There's always something, right?
Yeah, and the nice guys forget that, they make so many things in their head so transactional that they think that sex is going to be transactional. But so they're so disconnected from actually what creates the environment, what creates the emotion that she desires you. And the nice guys, I know, they want to be desired, they want to be doted on, but they do everything that does the opposite.
Yeah. So the opposite of a nice guy isn't a jerk. The opposite of a nice guy is an integrated man. In other words, he loves himself just the way that he is. He is integrated on all of his parts. And integration also refers to integrity. So he has integrity in his life. And so he acts from a place of integrity and integration as opposed from a place of transactional relationship. I'll do this for you. Covert contracts is what Robert calls in the book. So I'm excited about this podcast because, hopefully this has been a little bit of a taste test like a taster for people, just to kind of get a little sense of where we're going with this podcast. That there's just a lot of layers here, a lot of things that we can talk about around the nice guy syndrome and how that shows up in our lives, and how we maybe seen that show up in the lives of other guys, and what works and what doesn't work. So I'm personally just jazzed to be doing this podcast and to be doing it with you because you are an awesome guy.
Me too. I'm really chuffed to be doing this because I know how important this work is, and I can't wait to share some of the stories and hear some of the experiences that you've had, the guys that you worked with. And I know there's going to be some great stuff when it comes to love, intimacy, sex, money, relationships, work, travel, fun, all of these things that, I wish I was listening to this when I was young.
Right, yeah.
This is the kind of messages I want to hear, and this is what we're here for, to serve each other. And I can't wait to start this journey with you, Chuck.
Thank you. I'm grateful for it. So that wraps up podcast number 1 of the Nice Guys Show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe, do whatever you got to do so that you can follow us for future episodes. We're going to be trying to produce, episodes as often as we possibly can. And we want to be able to help you become an integrated man. Okay? It's not about becoming a nice guy. It's about becoming an integrated man.
Absolutely. And Chuck, I reckon the next podcast that we should do, the start run, is why do nice guys settle for bad sex?
Okay. I think that's probably the question on a lot of guys' minds of, how do I get more sex, and how do I get better sex, and why am I not getting sex? And so I think that's a great idea. So we'll do that for podcast number 2. So be sure to tune in. We're going to talk about sex, and we're going to talk about why nice guys settle for bad sex.
You've been listening to The Nice Guys Show, the podcast that helps nice guys move past their insecurities and fears into the fullness of their masculine strength and confidence. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and check out the website niceguyshow.com for more information on how to connect with Chuck and Faisal. Until next time, keep living your best life.